Hello and welcome to the video for Monday for After Effects. It's week 15 and today we have a motion background tutorial for you to look at. And also in this video I'm going to take some of the skills that you learned in that tutorial and apply them to a specific background that I'm working on, just so you can see how you can take some of the information from the tutorials and translate it directly to projects which you're doing. So, if I click on this motion tutorial background link, you're going to go to this page, and in this tutorial, you're going to be shown how to take graphics like spirals and these strange sort of wheels here and use them to create a motion background, which is graphics that are in motion. And then you can put text on top of that, with the idea being that the text becomes more interesting because there's something going on in the background. So, after I would recommend that you do this tutorial first before you watch the rest of this video. And the reason is because we're going to use some of the things you learned in this video, this tutorial, in the video I'm doing now. So, for example, he teaches you, how to move these specific shapes around. And what I have is a project that I've been working on, and it is here in After Effects. And what it is, it's a little music video that a student of mine worked on for me, and it's a little video about this song called "Everybody Sing About Love." And in this video, it's all about peace and love, and there's a lot of graphics in it that have to do with peace symbols and hearts and things like that. And like you can see right here in the guitar, there's a little peace symbol there and a heart. So my idea was there's places in here, yeah, here's a good example of one. There's places in this video where, sure, there's text being animated, but the background is just blank essentially. And, maybe that's interesting for a little while, but if it goes on for too long, like this probably goes on for a good 10 seconds or whatever, it might be more interesting if there's something going on in the background, like, for example, motion graphics. So my idea was to take icons like the peace symbol and the heart and try and animate those as motion graphics and then put them into this video behind some of those sections that could use a little spicing up. Okay, so now if you guys want to follow along with me on your After Effects, you can make a new After Effects project from scratch if you want. You can be working in an existing composition, whatever you want to do. It doesn't really matter when you make a new composition. It doesn't really matter what the dimensions are or the length of it. As long as it can be changed to whatever you need. Now, in my case, I already have an existing composition that I'm going to add some of these graphics to. So I have to make very specific choices, but you can just go, composition, new composition, or click on the create a new composition button and make a composition whatever size and whatever length you want if you want to follow along. Now for me, I have to go to composition and composition settings, and I have to look at what the existing settings are because the new composition that I make, I want to add it to the main composition. So it looks like it's 1920 by 1080, 2997 HD TV 1080 2997. So I just have to try and remember that stuff. So hopefully when I make a new composition, it'll remember all those settings. So I'll just click a composition, new composition, and sure enough, it shows me that it's going to, that it's going to do all the things that I want. I accidentally closed that window. So let me try again, composition, new composition. Okay, so let's call this motion background. All right, and now we can look at how long we want it to be. The background color of black is fine. And then 10 seconds long is also fine. So we'll just go ahead and hit OK with that. Now, when you make a new composition like this, and this is what I sometimes call a mini comp, because it's a smaller composition that will be nested into the larger composition or placed in the larger composition. So this is your mini comp, and it's open right here, but your main composition, if you're working, with a main composition like I am, is going to be over here in another tab, so you can go back and forth to them. So here's mine. It has a black background. Now, the first thing I'm thinking about is that the graphics that I got were black. So, maybe it makes sense for me to work on a different color, like a white background, or or I could change the colors of my graphics. But the problem is, black is not as neutral of a background as I would like for something like doing these motion graphics. Now, another possibility is gray, a neutral gray, kind of like what we see here. So let's see if I can make that happen. So I'll go under composition settings, and here you have your background color, right? Now, this is not a perfectly ideal way to do this, but if I go ahead and grab my cursor and I, or my mouse here, and I grab this little color point here, and I basically stick it, eyeball it halfway between totally black and totally white, I'm approximating a medium gray, okay? And I can hit OK and OK again, and then that becomes the background color for my composition. Now, of course, I can always go back in there and change it, but I just want something really neutral so that I can do my stuff on top of it. Now, as far as the graphics themselves, I told you I'm going to use peace and love symbols. So what I've done, I've gone to my favorite vector site, and which is vecteezy.com, and I just did a search for heart graphics. I'll show you some of the things that I came up with. So all this kind of stuff. And, there are hearts that are obviously much more complicated, but I just went with the basic one because it shows the basic heart shape, and the fact that it's black, I thought that was good because it removed all the color, so I can now make my color choices without necessarily committing to just using the traditional red color. And then I searched for the peace symbol, and I got this kind of stuff, and I did the same thing here. I just used a generic sort of peace symbol. By the way, when I was looking for this, I actually typed in peace and love, and I saw one thing that was pretty cool, which I downloaded, which is the combination of the two symbols. This one right here, where somebody's taken a peace symbol and smushed it inside of a heart. And I also like things like these little birds and these flowers, and so I downloaded this, and I'll be able to use these throughout the video. Okay, but anyway, so what I have is I have those in Adobe Illustrator. So I downloaded each of them and put them together into this file right here. So obviously I'm going to have to get these into After Effects, and then I'm going to have to do whatever kind of animation I want to do with them. Now, initially, I may do something just very simple, like spinning them around in different directions and things like that. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that. So the first thing I might want to do is see how I can get these into After Effects. Now, one way is you can copy files from After Effects, from Illustrator, because they're vector files, go into After Effects, and you could look and see if it will allow you to paste these in here. And unfortunately, it's not giving us the ability to paste. So that means that we would have to then save these graphics and import them from Adobe Illustrator. So let's do each one on its own. So I'll take this bad boy off for a second. I'll put it in the paste buffer. I'll grab this heart right here, and I will just save it as an Adobe Illustrator file. So we'll say desktop. We'll just call it heart.ai and hit save, and then leave all the defaults. Okay, and then I'll just delete that, paste the peace symbol in, and save this as peace.ai. Like I said, if you want to follow along at home and do this exact same exercise, you can go out to Vecteezy and get a heart and a peace symbol, and you know, you can save them under similar names, and then you can import them into, like I said, any size Adobe After Effects project, just to follow along. Okay, so we've got peace and we've got heart. So now we're going to go back to After Effects, and we're going to go File, Import. We could say import multiple files, and then we'll go to our desktop, and we'll look first for heart.ai, and there it is. And let's see, there's one, and then the other one is peace.ai, and there it is. And you can see, you know, different ways that you can import this. We're just going to import it as footage. You know, you could create a composition from it. You could make it, you know, you could import multiple files in a sequence. So in other words, if I had created a folder and called the first graphic the heart graphic 1.ai, and I called the peace graphic 2.ai, it could import all those, anything that's sequentially numbered or lettered. It could import all of them at once, so that could save you some time. So anyway, let's just hit open and see that in there. So now, you know, I told it I wanted to import multiple files, which is why it keeps asking me. So, but I can hit cancel now, and you can see that heart and peace are lit up over here. So I can grab these and drop them in here. It looks like now we have a big smushed together file, but so now we see we've got the heart graphic and the P symbol. Now you might look at these and see, you know, if we zoomed in a little bit, let's see, 200% maybe. You can see that these graphics, even though they're vector graphics, they look a little blurry. And the reason is because I'm currently working on what's called half resolution. If I change this to full resolution, you can see how good those look. But half resolution will allow me to work a lot faster on my machine based on the memory that it has. And of course, you can go down all the way to a third or a quarter resolution. A quarter resolution, things are going to look pretty cheesy, but your workflow is going to be a lot faster. So, but for your sake, because you're watching this video, I'll just go ahead and work at full resolution. Okay, and then if I want to fit everything on my screen again, I can just hit fit. Okay, so now I have two different layers here, and I've got two different objects. My plus symbol, or I'm using my P symbol, and my heart. And I think the reason that these files are so big like this is because my Illustrator files were so large. So you know, if I really wanted to work with smaller files, or I should say smaller images, I could resize this graphic like this, resize the artboard so that I have a much smaller graphic. And then I could resave this. So we'll just call this piece2.ai, save it on the desktop. And now I'm just gonna Command Z back to when I had my heart on there, and you know, resize this graphic once again using the artboard to resize it. I always click in the wrong place and then I lose my my little handle here. Okay, there we go. There's the handle. So we'll get this. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you know, you just get it super close to the edge so you don't have a bunch of extra space. Okay, and that looks good. So now we'll save this as heart2.ai. Okay, and then we can go back to After Effects, and you know, for comparison, you can see how huge that file is. See how huge that file is. And then we can do file import multiple files again. This time we're looking for piece2.ai and heart2. Okay, and then we cancel out of that. And then we can bring these two bad boys down. Once again, they're smushed up in the middle, but this time, look at that. Much, much easier to deal with, less space around it. Okay, so we've got these two symbols here, so now we can proceed to do whatever it is we want to do with them. Now my idea is to maybe make a little, almost like a wallpaper background where it shows like a peace symbol and then a heart symbol and then a peace symbol, a heart symbol, and then each one is doing something a little differently. And right now I'm just thinking about rotation. Later on I could add color changes or opacity changes or whatever I want to do. But for right now, just as a basic get started on this process, I'll animate everything rotating, and then in future videos I'll keep working on this and doing different changes to it and adding more to the main video so you can see some of the options we have available to us. Okay, now if I want, I can clean up my my documents over here by deleting this original piece that I put in there, and the same with the heart. And that does a couple things. It cleans up my files, but it also makes sure I'm not going to bring the wrong one in at any given time. Now also, I can just temporarily delete the heart off the stage there and work with one image at a time. First the peace symbol and then the heart. So in the tutorial we just watched, he made a star and then he twisted that around so it became sort of a buzzsaw shape, a buzzsaw blade. And then he put a second one in the middle of it and rotated it. Well, it would be hard to get, this symbol doesn't really lend itself to putting one inside another. I mean, you could certainly have one inside another and spinning around, but it would be a different kind of look. So let's just start with spinning this bad boy around. So what we can do is twirl open our options here and then our transform options. And we can start with rotation, click the stopwatch to create a rotation keyframe. Now his video is only 5 seconds long, which would be, in this case, about halfway here would be 10 frames. And then, or I'm sorry, looks like this right here, the 500 is halfway. And then 1000 is the full way of my compositions, twice as long. So he has his just rotate once in this time frame of 5 seconds. So I'll start with that process. I'll rotate it once in 5 seconds, and then maybe rotate it a second time, in the second half, the second 5 seconds, and see, what's going on there. It might be that I end up chopping off the second half of this and just using the first 5 seconds. So I tell you what, I'll do this. Why don't I do it right now? Change this to 5 seconds, so at least we're working with the same sort of parameters that he is in the video. So once again, if you make decisions to change things, you can just go under composition and composition settings, and right here where you have your 10 seconds, change that to 05 and OK. And now it shortens our composition to 5 seconds. Okay, so we've got our first keyframe there, and then we can go down here all the way to the end as far as it will let us go, and then we can click on this empty diamond here to create another rotation keyframe. But here what we do is we change this first number to 1, meaning that over the course of 5 seconds this symbol is going to do 1 complete rotation. Now keep in mind that when you click on the graphic here, that your anchor point is right in the center, and that's important because that's what it's going to rotate around. So now if we go back to the beginning and hit our space bar, over the period of 1 second we get or 5 seconds we get the complete rotation of the peace symbol, and of course it's looping, so we just see it happening over and over again. Okay, and now we'll just go back to the beginning here, and there we are. Okay, now as I said, my original idea was to have these hearts and peace symbols kind of rotating around in the background. And this is the total amount of room I have in my video. So this is kind of a huge symbol to be sort of background wallpaper. So I can click on this and hold my shift key down and move it down. The idea is just that it would be, not too tiny. I don't want to get 300 of these on the screen, but maybe sort of medium sized. And we can put it up here. And the other thing is, maybe I want to have this be semi-transparent, so it's not as dark as you see right here. So I can close up, I can twirl up this transform option. I can close this here, and I can click on this layer and hit the T key for transparency, or what it's called in here is opacity. And I can just click on this number right here and change it to 50%. And so what happens is, that becomes a more screened back kind of look. And so that'll serve me better in sort of the background animation. Now I might want to simplify the naming here, so I can click on this the name and hit my enter key, and then it will allow me to rename it. So I'll just name this One Piece, so that it's easy to find in my list of graphics here. And then if I want to make a copy of this, um, well, there's different options that you could do. The fastest one is to, of course, we'll close up the opacity here because we're not using it. But if you just on your Macintosh hold down the Command key and hit the letter D as in duplicate, it'll make a copy on the Windows machines. On the PCs, it's Control D to make a duplicate. So now I have a duplicate copy of this, which is piece 2, and I can click on that, and I can just, move that over a little bit. And of course, both of them are, doing the same thing right now. Now, the tricky part here is, I want to duplicate this, and I want to go, I want to have the peace symbol and then the heart, the peace symbol and then the heart. But I don't know quite how many are going to fit across the screen. And it might be helpful to bring the heart in now and get that all figured, all assembled, so that I can then just make duplicates of these and paste them across, so I can get this whole sort of moving wallpaper thing happening. So now we've got a peace symbol, we've got a second one, so we can see how that's going to look if we put the heart in there as well. So let's go ahead and let's grab the heart, and let's drag it down into our layer stack here. The first thing we may want to do is resize it so that it's similar in size to these other graphics. So I can hold my shift key down, click on this, and then hold my shift key down as I scale it, and just try and get this to be approximately the same size as the peace symbol. And let's see how this looks. So I'm just trying to line the top up with the top of that circle, and the bottom, just trying to get that to hit the bottom of this circle here. So that's pretty close. And if I put that in there, let me see how I feel about that. Well, it's interesting because it's probably about the same height, but it actually looks a little bigger. Let me go ahead and go view and show guides. And I'm also going to do view and show rulers. And then I can grab a guideline from up here and line it up with the top of my piece symbols, is what I'm actually doing right now. And then line one up with the bottom of my piece symbols. And of course, we can zoom in here and hold down our space bar to make the hand tool. Okay, so it does look like the heart is just slightly larger than the other ones. It looked that way to me, so I guess I was right. So now I want to click on this thing. It's strange. I wonder why it's giving me the straight up and down arrow instead of just the. Oh, it's clicking on the guidelines. That's what it's doing. Okay, so, but what I want is the heart. I don't want the guidelines. So let's see if there's any options here. Lock guides. That's what we want to do. So we don't accidentally grab those. So now we can click on one of these and pull it down a little bit. And yeah, even though this heart is actually now technically a little smaller than the peace symbols, because it's a little underneath the guides right there and there, it looks pretty good. Because actually, when I look carefully, these guidelines aren't perfect either. They're above the peace symbols and below them. So, I'm just kind of eyeballing it, and I kind of like the way that it looks. So, I'll go ahead and leave that for now. And now I can decide what I want to do with the heart symbol. Like I said, I'm just going for kind of a rotation thing right now. It's kind of the simplest thing I can do. And then I can experiment with different things like colorizing these and changing opacity and things of that nature. Um, okay, so in order to get this to be somewhat similar to that, at this point I can go ahead and rename it. So I can click on it and hit my enter button, and I can go ahead and just name this heart. And one of the advantages of that is when you make duplicates, then it'll number them. So that's piece and that's piece 2. When I make duplicates of this, it'll be heart and heart 2. Next thing I can do is I can hit my letter T for transparency, or in this case opacity, and click on this and change it to 50%. You can manually drag that, or sometimes it's easier just to put the numbers in, right? Okay, so now we've got our 50% there. Now we can twirl open. We can click on this again and hit the T button again to get rid of that attribute that was open. Now we can twirl that open, and now we can work with our rotation. Now, if we look at this, we've got, those guys moving that way. Every copy of that we make is going to have exactly the same rotation to it, unless we go in and manually change the speed at which they're rotating, which could be interesting. But now what we have to decide, if every other one of these is going to be, a heart, how do we want that to rotate? Do we want it to go at exactly the same speed? Do we want it to rotate in the other direction? What choices we're going to make with that. So, well, let's try each one and see what we think. So first of all, we'll go to the beginning here. We're on the heart layer. We'll click on the rotation stopwatch, which sets the keyframe. Then we'll go down to the very end, and we'll click on the diamond shape here, the empty diamond, to make another keyframe. And this time what we'll do is we'll put in -1. Okay, so let's look and see what happens there. So what happens is it's doing a rotation, but this time it's going counterclockwise. So we can go ahead and hit our space bar. Yeah, and I can tell right off the bat, I don't really like that. I think the reason I don't like it, well, one reason I don't like it is because the heart, the circle is, because it's a perfect shape, it looks really good when it rotates around, but the heart, because it's this sort of weird off shape, it looks a little off when it rotates around. So it going the other direction really highlights that. Now that may mean that I'm going to hit my space bar to stop this. That may mean that I don't want to rotate the heart at all, because it's such a weird shape and it looks kind of weird rotating. In fact, I think that's going to be the solution that I'm going to choose. But just for grins here, I'm going to go down to the end, and I'm going to change this from a -1 to a +1. And then I'll hit play. I'll hit my space bar to play it and see, what I think. Well, certainly I like it rotating with the peace symbols better. But once again, if you look at the spacing between this peace symbol and the heart and this peace symbol and the heart, the amount of space between them changes because of these curves of the heart, and it looks a little bizarre. It doesn't look. It looks a little off kilter to me. So as I said, this is not something I'm probably going to go for. So let me hit my space bar to stop that. Okay, so what that means is I can literally just uh, shift click on both of these keyframes in rotation and hit delete, and boom, the rotation is done for that heart. Now, what other options do I have? Well, There's the transparency option, which is basically it can give something the effect of fading in and fading out. So let's try that because we have infinite options here, but we'll try that one just for fun. So let's see, and we're only going to go up to this 50% visible anyway, so it's going to go from 50% visible to down to 0 and then back again. So the only question I really have to ask is, do I want it to do that just once, in the 5 seconds, or do I want it to do it twice? In other words, do I want it to go all the way to 0 and then back again? Well, my solution is that I want it to go all the way down to 0 and back again, because then when it loops, it'll already be at 50% and it'll be a pretty seamless loop. So what that means is this time I have to go to opacity, and I have to create a little opacity keyframe there. And then I have to go down to the halfway mark, which is, let's see, this is, we can click on the blue numbers here. And let's see, 5 seconds, I believe, would be 500. So let's see if we put in 250. Well, that's just wrong. So that takes me to 320. So, well, let's just do it the old-fashioned way. So let's change this number to 2. And let's see. I'm just kind of experimenting here, see if I can get halfway. Oh, it takes me back to 320. Why did it do that again? All right. So let's see. All right, hold on. Let me clear this up. Let me bring this back halfway here. So, okay. So here is 2 seconds, and here is 3 seconds, and this is 29.97 frames per second. So this 15 is going to be about the halfway point. So let me go there, and that looks like it's about the halfway point. So let me create another, so it was 215 was the solution there. So let me create a keyframe there. And then at this keyframe, instead of 50%, I want the heart to be completely zeroed out. And then we can go down to the end here and click that. And now we can take this back up to 50%. Okay. And so what we should be achieving here is this sort of fading in and out. So it fades down to nothing and then fades back in. Okay, so, and we can it's a good idea to preview this, right? Now when I'm previewing it, I'm not, I like the effect. I like the effect of the heart going away and coming back, but it takes too long. It's like there's just a big empty space there for a long time. So I'm going to hit my space bar to stop this. So what I can do to correct for that is to basically move these two keyframes where it's completely faded out and back in, move them to the left until I get something that I like. So let's say that we want this whole process to take 2 seconds instead of 5. So I can click on these two and move them over. And then eventually I'm going to have to move each one individually. But let's put our playback head here at 1 second and move that middle where it's completely faded out there to 1 second, and then move this one to 2 seconds and put that there. Now, I suspect this is still going to take too long, but let's watch it. Well, that was kind of weird, actually. So I think what I want is kind of a blinking effect. And to get that, this is just too long. So let's go down, take our playback head and put it down here to the 15, and go up here to 1 and put this here. And once again, the reason that I know this is weird, like, okay, that means 1 second, and why is 15 half of 1 second? Well, the reason for that, and that's why I was, a little confused before, is that this is running at a frame rate of 29.97 frames per second, which you can round up to 30 frames per second. And if it's 30 frames per second, then 15 frames is half of that, approximately. So now at this point, I just want to see what it looks like just over this first second, because obviously I haven't repeated it yet, and see if if the repetition, the blinking, is working for me, if I like the speed of it. So I'm just going to hit play. Wow, that is so fast and so weird. Let's see. Let me just go. Wow, what is it? It's that there's like a weird sort of doubling thing that happens when it goes out and then comes back in. It's not quite what I was hoping for. Um, Once again, I can just keep having this until I kind of get the effect that I want. So now I'm going to go down to half a second, basically, because I think I just want this blinking on and off. Now this one's a little trickier, so that's 15. So I don't know if I'm fooling myself here, but I'm just going to put, uh, let's see, 0.75 and hit return. Oh, and of course that didn't work. I don't know what it is, but this will never work for me. Okay, so let's see. 0.7 is almost halfway. It should be, I mean, I was right. It's just 0.75 should have taken me right where I wanted to go. So, but that's okay. We'll put it down here around 7-ish, which is close enough to half. And then let's see. Okay, so now it's doing kind of more of this blinking thing that I want. And of course, it's hard to really tell in just one if that's what you like. Now it seems to be going a little too fast. Yeah. Okay, so this is the process, the creative process of making choices and then making changes. I suspect that what I may have to do, that was too fast for me, like I said. I may have to just paste in a number of these just to see really what I want. Now, what's got to happen is uh, basically every other one has to be the fade out, and every other one has to be the one that's completely in, right? So, for example, I can copy this keyframe right here, and I can go down to 115, and I can paste it in. And then that is, that should be correct. Now, I can just keep doing that. Let's see. So I'm trying to see which ones I would copy to keep this process going. Well, let's see. If I copy, let's see. So we have in, out, in, out. So the next one's going to be an in again. So let's see if I copy all 4 of these. And I'm just going to use Command C to copy this time. And then I go down to my 2-second mark and I do Command V. Okay, so it's pasted the in and out again. And then I go down to my 4-second mark and I do Command V. Of course, it's not going to have room to do, it's going to cut off the extra one over there. But now I've pasted all these in at the same increments, which is, it takes a half second to fade out and a half second to fade back in. So now let's just watch that. Okay, so just for now, let's go ahead and stick with that because like I said, there's an infinite amount of choices, so you could just keep doing this over and over again all day. Okay, so but now we have our heart here. What we want to do is we want to duplicate that. So Command D, duplicate, click on it and drag it over. Hold your Shift key down and try and get it so it's about the same distance from this P symbol that one is from this symbol, right? And then we just have to keep the repetition going. So Command D, we make a copy of that and hold down our Shift key. Oops, looks like that one got jacked a little bit. So click on this, hold down your, that's weird that it goes down like that. Let me start moving it. Why does it do that? So weird. Okay, I click on this, I hold my shift key down, and it drops the second I hold my shift key down, which is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen in my entire existence. I don't know why it's doing that. Let me see if I turn my guides off. Oh, this is why. Snap to guides is on, and that's an incredibly annoying feature. You definitely want to get that turned off. Okay, so we click on this, we hold our shift key down, this time it works. Okay, so we got that now. So now we have to Command D, make another one of these, and put it, over here like this. Okay, click on the peace symbol, Command D. All right, and you could be more mathematical about this. You could measure everything out and to get it, exactly the way that you want it. But I'm just gonna eyeball it for now. Okay, let's see. So we got that. Command D again. Hold down the Shift key to make sure it goes in a straight line. Command D. Shift key. And then Command D. As you can see, let's see, I'm not sure I'm seeing my whole document here. Oh yeah. So, it didn't come out perfectly because, I was just basically guessing on everything. There's more space over here than there is here, but let's see if we can select everything at once. Let's make sure that we're at the very beginning of the timeline here. And then let's just hit the arrow key on our keyboard and just try and get everything evened up a little bit there so that there's the same amount of space on the left side and the right side. Okay, so now we can fit this into the screen like this. I can hide my guidelines if I want. So hide the guides. And then we can hit the play button. Okay, now obviously I'll hit the stop button there. Obviously, if we want this to be a whole background, all we have to do is copy this and paste it down below this. And we can even do things like, the hearts. Every other one here, we could have the heart be here now and here, and the peace symbol there, so that it kind of breaks it up. Let's see. One example of that would be if I highlighted everything here, and let's see. Okay. If I said copy and then paste, and then hold down my shift key and move that down, you'll see what it does is it just essentially makes a whole new set of those layers of these things. And so now we've got this kind of thing. Now if we want to, like I said, because it might look weird to have them all be symmetrical on top of each other like that, we might grab this whole second layer here. Actually, here, let me try this. I'll go back to the beginning. Okay, I'm going to do Command X to get rid of that first one because I want to get rid of it for now, but not permanently. And then what I'm going to do is highlight all these guys and just use my click on this, hold my shift key down, and just move them over so that they're alternating every other one like that. Right now, I was hoping I could paste that peace symbol that I cut off onto here, but unfortunately, what it really needs is another heart symbol. So what I'll have to do is do Command D, give myself another heart symbol, and then move this over here like this. Okay, and now I've got this kind of look that I want, right? Now, obviously I can just go through and, keep, I could now grab this whole thing and do, edit, copy, paste, and it would give me more, and I would stick those down here, and then another one. So, I could have a whole page worth of these things and create my, like I said, my wallpaper background. Now, one thing that just occurred to me, I spent some time on the blinking hearts there uh, to try and get a rhythm that I liked. And, I'm not 100% satisfied with it. It looks okay, but it's still a little wonky to me. And then something just occurred to me, which is I'm doing this, I'm syncing this to a music video. And so, and of course, the music video has a specific beat to it. So, what I can do in a future video, I can investigate, what that beat is, and I can try making the hearts, come in and out, basically turn on and off to that beat. Now, another thing that I can do, another thing that's kind of weird is the hearts are fading in and out, right? So it's like they fade out, they fade back in. I could literally just turn them on and off. I could have the heart there and then have the heart off and then have the heart on again. And that might make it a little cleaner as opposed to this fade. So, your options, as I always say, are infinite. And of course, there's coloration issues and other things to think about here. Now, one of the things that he did in the tutorial was after making his motion background, he pre-composed all the layers to make it one single layer that he could then add into his other composition. And pre-composing is a pretty simple process. You would basically, select all the layers by doing Command A or Control A. And then you would simply you could right click on these and do pre-compose. And then you would give this a name, and what it would do is it would collapse everything down into one layer. And so then your motion background, you might name this motion background, would be one layer that you could add behind all the other layers in your main composition. Now, I'm not going to do that right now. I just wanted to show you the process of how it works. Another thing that he did was he used adjustment layers to do a couple things to his background. One was he created a mask, a rounded rectangle in the center, and he inverted the mask so it was affecting everything outside of the rounded rectangle, and then he blurred the edges of his composition, his motion background. And that's a certain look. That's not really the kind of look I want here, but let's do a different kind of thing with adjustment layers. So the other thing he did was he changed the tint of his objects, and he did that by making the objects white to start with, and then changing the tint with an adjustment layer. So let's see how that might work. Let's bring in one of these objects as a white object from Illustrator, and then we can try the tint out and see how that works. So what I'll do is I'll go back to Adobe Illustrator, and let me go ahead and see if I've got my see, there's the heart. Let's see, let's just open up the peace symbol. Okay, so now we can click on this because it's vector art. It's easy to change. You can just make it white like that. And now let's go ahead and save this as piece3.ai on the desktop. Okay. And then we'll go back into Adobe After Effects here. We'll go File, Import File, and we'll look for piece 3. Okay, we'll import that. Okay, and there it is. And then I'll just go up here to the top and top of my stack here and see if I can't put it right there. Oh, so that's weird. It came in as black again. I wonder why it did that. Piece3.ai. It came in as black when I made it white. Let me look into that. Okay, so I figured out what the problem was with that piece symbol and why it was coming in black instead of white. I stopped the video for a second and looked into it. So if we go back to Adobe Illustrator, here we have our white piece symbol. And when I save that as a .ai file, it brought it in as black for some reason. So the solution to this is to save it as an EPS file. So if I go File, Save As, and I'll just call this, piece 6, let's say, and instead of AI, I'm going to save it as an Adobe Illustrator file. And then I can even choose use artboards, which will take everything just on this artboard here. And then I can hit save, and I can hit OK for all the defaults. EPS stands for Encapsulated PostScript, and that was the precursor to PDF. And so if I go now into Adobe After Effects and I bring in my file import, file, and then I look for my piece6.eps. There it is right there. And here it is. And I can always drag it down here, or I can drag it directly onto the screen, and you can see there that now it is white. Now, as I said earlier in the tutorial, he had made all of his images white, and then he was able to do an adjustment layer where he changed the color of that image over time. So, let's say that I went back and saved, the P symbol as a white EPS and the heart symbol as a white EPS, and then I imported them in that way. Did all my motion background here with the spinning and the blinking and got everything exactly the way I wanted to. And then if I wanted to change the color, I could use the adjustment layer and the tint like he did. Now, it might even be that, I don't like these. I never really like the way that these hearts kind of fade in and out. I might not like the blinking. What I might do is just have them just sit there and change color while these other things spin around. So, but let's see what that would look like. So let's take this this symbol right here, which is the peace symbol, the white peace symbol, and let's go ahead and see what we can do with this thing. Okay, now one of the first things I noticed is for some reason when I brought this in as an EPS, it only keeps it on the screen for a very short period of time here. It's got a weird name here where it named it several piece5-6.eps, and it's got several icons there. So it did something kind of weird with it, and it's not creating the effect I want, which is to have this thing be on the screen the whole time. Now you can change that. You can right click on this and you can go to something called time, and you can do something called time stretch. And this changes the amount of time that your object is on the screen. So right now, it's on for 2 frames basically, and I want this to be on the screen for the entire 5 seconds. So if I change this, if I stretch that object to be on the stage for 5 seconds and hit OK, you see this content block goes all the way over here now. So now I have this for 5 seconds, right? It's in there the whole time. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is we talked about making an adjustment layer. And so you can go under Layer, New, and then go to an adjustment layer. And that creates an adjustment layer right here, which affects everything beneath it. Now, of course, in the video tutorial, he put text on top of this background. And of course, in my video here, there would be the original video, which is the words of the song moving around. Those would be in front of this background. So you would then use an adjustment layer on top of just this motion background, but not in front of the text. And that would allow you to change things here, everything below the text, basically. So now that we've got our adjustment layer, we can do a search in the effects and presets here. You can find your effects and presets box and open it up. Click on it, open it up. Go in here and search for tint. And what you'll get is you'll get this color correction tint, and that's the one you want. You can click on that and you can drop it on top of your object here. Now, what we want to do, you could just, in the video, he just changed everything to be, a specific color, and that was fine. But you can change things to be a specific color, but you can also make that color change over time. In other words, you can animate the tint. So the first thing you want to do is change the color. The way you do that is, this is clearly white, so you could click map white to and click on this white and change it to red, right? Now, by the way, I noticed that, that there's a map black to as well, which means that we probably could have just worked with the original blacks. But since he was working with white in the tutorial, I went ahead and changed this to white. But anyway, so there's map white to, and now it's red, and it's going to stay red for the entire animation if we just leave it like that, right? However, if we grab our playback head and we now go down to the very end of the animation, and now we click on our map white to, and remember, we clicked on the stopwatch to make a keyframe at the beginning there for the color. So if we go under effects and then tint, you can see that there's a keyframe there, right? So now if we drag this to the end and we click on this and we change it to a different color, like say the opposite, like green or something like that, now you can see a new keyframe has been created there. So what's happening is the color tint is being animated. So it starts out with red, and then over time, that red goes through, whatever the color wheel is. The color wheel changes it needs to animate and change to green over time. So, and we'll just hit the play button here. Oh, it looks like it has to render it, which is what that green line is, and which is why it slowed down a little bit. But now after it's rendered it, you can see that basically that thing is changing colors. And this gives me ideas too. Like, for example, the peace and love was very reminiscent of the 60s, and rainbows were a big part of that decade as well. So you could start the color of this object to be at the beginning of the color wheel, which is red. So let's see, red, orange, yellow, green, blue. Let's see, Roy G. Biv, blue, indigo, violet, right? So you could start at red and then have it go to violet. And basically what would happen is it would go through every color of the color spectrum, and essentially doing a bit of a rainbow dance back there. And of course you could, have each of these, oh, they could all be doing the color shifting, or every other one could be a rainbow, and the other ones, the hearts could be red, and the peace symbols could be going through the rainbow of colors. So I'll go ahead and stop that real quick. But anyway, this just gives you one example of taking that tutorial, which is creating a motion background, and bringing it into a real world project, right? So in the next video, I'll make some decisions as far as, from a taste perspective, what I like and what I want to use back here. I'll make those changes, and I'll make this motion background and stick it in the video so you can see it, and I'll talk about the choices I made, and then we'll move on to doing some other things with this video. Now I'm hoping that all these tutorials and tips and techniques will help you with your projects, and that you can get inspired by them to add some things to your compositions. Okay, so that is the video for today. Please continue to work on project 3, and if you have any questions about that, let me know. I had given you some examples last week of things you could talk about in regards to anything good that could come of this coronavirus situation. And I just want to emphasize that you don't have to, the ideas I gave, you don't have to conform to one of those specific ideas. You can think of any idea you want. You can do any twist on that topic that you like, whatever works for you. Okay, and of course, I know some of you are running a little bit behind and you're still working on project 2. Please turn that in as soon as possible, because I do need to give you guys a grade for that. By the way, I am working on grades for those of you who have turned that in. Now, the other thing is, we're trying to do a chapter a week, and right now you would be up to around chapter 13 in the book. I forget which chapter it is because they change the numbers of chapters in the book every time they put a new edition out. But right around chapter 13 or 14, that's where we end the book. As I've said in the past, the very last chapter, the one that has to do with rendering, you don't have to do that one. And I don't have the book in front of me, so I don't know if that's chapter 13 or 16. But, the very last chapter you don't have to do about rendering, but the ones before that, please do. So hopefully, if you've been keeping up, you're getting very near or the end of the book or completing the book. And make sure you put all that work in your Google Drive folder so I can give you credit for that. If you haven't done the chapters, please start catching up now and do couple chapters a week at least, because we're just a few weeks out from the end of school. So you'll want to finish those up. Okay, like I said, that's it for the video today, and I will see you guys again. I'll talk to you again on Wednesday.